So here I'm going to do is to use Excel, and so this is a supplement to the PowerPoint that you just went through. And what I'm going to do is to show you how would you do it in Excel. And so in our project, like we said, we had from year one, year 2, 3, we had this cash flow, 1 minus 100, and then 10 and 60 and 80. And the question is, how do we figure out what the discounted cash flow is? How do we figure out what the net present value is? How do we figure out what the IRR is using Excel? So remember from the PowerPoint that if I want to know a discounted value of any of these cash flow, for example, if I want to know the discounted value of this, I would divide that by 1 plus whatever the return we are looking for R, and we would raise it to N. Okay. So at this point, some of you may be saying, okay, I think I can handle most of what I just said. Not sure how to deal with this raising it to N. Because I think you would probably know, okay, so if I want to know that, you can take your cell where this is E, this is E3, where 80 is. So you can say, okay, I have a cell E3. And I can divide this by 1, and I can say where my R is. I'm right now putting the return over here in cell B7, which is right here. So I say I can put in B7 over here. Now how do I do this? In order to raise to the power, you use a symbol that looks like this on the keyboard, and that is on the keyboard. Typically on most keyboards you have the number 6, and the shift key on the top looks like this. So you shift that, and that's what you would get, and then you would put in the cell where the N is. So for in this case it would be this cell over here where the 3 is. That would be, in this case, will be E2. Okay, and so that would be the formula. This is how you put it in. Okay, and you will get a number. So if I do this thing, that's the number I would get. So I already have put in the formulas, and I'm going to open it up and show it to you. Okay, so that's how it is done. We, to do a DCF or discount, we take the cash flow, you divide it by 1 plus R, we raise to N, and that's how you do it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase this, and I will do the formula so you can see me do it. Okay, so let me just erase these. So I'll just say clear content, so I got nothing left in there. So what do we have right now? We know it is year 1, 2, and 3. We have cash flow minus 100, 10, 60, and 80. I want to calculate the discounted cash flow for each year, so I will here, and I'll make this color a little bit lighter so it doesn't block the numbers. So let's make it very, very light green. Okay, and so I want to put a formula there. So I start with the equal to sign, and then I want to know what my cash flow, or the FV value is. In this case, is this cell. So I'll click on that cell. Then I have to divide it, and I'm going to do parentheses. I'll put in 1. Now I need an R. So we need to do is we said, okay, we need, we need I think I lost my Excel file. Let's start it again over here. So we had year 0, 1, 2, 3, 0. And the cash flow we had, for this make-believe project, we would have said came up with was minus 100. Then we had 10, we had 60, and we had 80. Okay, and that's what we had. And we want to do is to use an R of 10%, which is 0.1. Sorry, R 0.1. So that's where the R is. And I want to do is to figure out the DCF. Okay, so DCF for this amount right here, minus 100, the formula would be, I'm going to create a formula. I'm going to take the cash flow value that here, I have to divide it by, parentheses open, 1 plus R, which is this cell, and I'm going to F4 it so I can lock it in, so it will be easy for me to copy, as some of you probably already know. And again, this is only to make it easy to copy. So I have a, I'm sorry, I forgot to put the raising sign. So I need to go to a symbol that is above 6, hit that, and then I need N. N is this here, right here, this cell B3, and enter. And here I get my minus 100. And the reason it is the same as undiscounted is because when it's year 0, there is no discounting taking place. That's what happens. Now, if I want to do these, I can basically take this and I can just copy it now. Okay. So here I get. So here are the discounted cash flows. I'll just take some decimals out. And I'm not taking it out, I'm just not showing it. So this way, chart doesn't look as busy. I'll make these numbers a little bigger. Okay. And so that's what it looks like. So that's the DCF. So now we know how to do DCF. DCF is really, so let's look at the formula. You can see the formula, C4, which is the cash, divided by 1 plus R, close, see the little symbol, then C3, which is the year. Okay. If I look at this here, same thing, D4, which is this cash here, 1 plus R, which is obviously the same R, divided, raised to this little symbol D3, which is that 2 year, and so on. That's how it does. So that's this kind of cash flow. Now, so in the PowerPoint, I said that the net present value is really netting the present values. DCF is basically same as present value. It's one and the same thing. Okay. Present value is same thing as discounted cash flow. Okay. So if I want to know net present value, I just basically net it. So basically want to do is to add this thing up. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm just going to go here. I'm just going to go sum it. And I want to sum this row. And boom, here is what I get, 18.78. So you recall probably from the PowerPoint that the NPV for this cash flow was about 18 point something. So I'm going to put one more decimal place, so 18.78. Okay. Now, we also said, what about the IRR? Okay. IRR, we said, and I'm going to repeat it again. IRR is make that bigger. IRR is, I'll write the thing down. IRR is, I'll put in quotes, R at which NPV will be 0. Okay, that's IRR. IRR is R at which NPV is 0. So what are we trying to do? We're trying to figure out what is the R. Okay, that's what we're trying to figure out. What is the R? Okay. So one way to do that would be to say, okay, if I'm looking to make NPV equal to 0, and that's my NPV, and let's put a color that's yellow so you can see it. I'm going to put R, make it a maybe a light blue. And so now what would I, now I'll make this a percent format, so it looks like a percent. Maybe put in 2 decimal places. Okay. So at 10% R, for this cash flow, the NPV is 0. We calculate the cash flow and we basically added it up. Now, let's change that. Let's make it a higher percent. Let's make it a 12%. Obviously, if we make it a 12%, these numbers that are discounted will get smaller. Why? Because we're dividing it by a bigger number. Okay, so let's say this is 12%. So make it 0.12, 12%. Obviously, these you would expect them to get smaller. Why? Because I'm dividing it by 1.12 raised to the n, so that number gets smaller. Suppose I make it 14%. See, it goes to 8.94. Suppose I make it 16%. Suppose I make it 18%. Okay. See, getting close to 0. Suppose I make it slightly more, 1, 8, 1, 2, so it's 0. So the IRR is R at which NPV is 0, and so IRR in this case is 18.12%. That's what it is. So let's wrap it up for what we just did. Once we have done the analysis for any project, we've come with a cash flow, which we have learned how to do. We did it with sharing example. You're doing it for MaxSync. We'll do a couple more as we go through in the next couple of weeks. But once we have that, the question is, how do we figure out the NPV and IRR? To do NPV, you have to start with an R. So typically, project will say, do use 10% or 15%, or internally in a company, you'll have to estimate what is a good return that your company would like to have, and we'll talk about that subject in a different presentation. But let's say your company wants at least 10%. So at 10%, basically all that means the NPV will be 18.78. And the criteria for selecting project based on NPV is, as I mentioned in PowerPoint, if NPV is positive, which means basically that it's greater than 0. If it is greater than 0, then this project is acceptable, and in this case it is. Now, if somebody would be, suppose it was a project like, if you read the textbook, they say if the riskier project, you need a higher return. Suppose company will say, project's pretty risky, I will only accept it if I can make 20%. So if I do 0.2, I get a negative number. It is not higher than 0, it is less than 0. This project will not be acceptable if the number is negative. Okay, so let's go put it back to 10%. Okay, so in summary, for NPV, we calculate the discount, we net it, which is basically adding up all the discounted. If it's positive, it's acceptable. If it is negative, it's not acceptable. For example, let's say this project, instead of costing $100,000 up front, may end up costing us, say, $150, because it took us a lot longer, took more money. So let's say it was minus $150. Now the project has got a negative NPV, which means if this project would take $150 in year 0, the first year, and then it's covered by these cash flow, it is not acceptable, even at 10%, because of the negative NPV. Okay. Now let's talk about how can we use Excel to do NPV and IRR. Okay, how do we use Excel to do NPV and IRR? So I'll do it on the bottom over here. So let me just make this. Okay, so we want to calculate NPV, but this time we're going to use Excel because it has embedded formulas in there already. So I'm going to go in this cell. You're going to go on the top where it says formulas. You click the formulas. You open up, you want to open the financial formulas. You're going to find net present value. Okay. So Excel basically is going to do is the steps we just did. It will calculate the discounted cash flow. Let me just change that to, I guess I'll have to hang on one second. Let me just bring it back to where we were so we can start from where we started from. So back to where we are. Okay, so now again doing the Excel thing, because I want to show you this number, which we did it by discounting it ourselves and adding it up. If I use NPV formula, which it does both steps, it does the discounting first and then does adding it up for us. Formulas, financials, net present value. So it's going to say, okay, Excel is going to ask us to say, okay, what are you looking for to figure out if the NP is positive or not? So we said, okay, this is the cell. So okay, what values are you looking for? In this case, you will do is to go, not the discounted, because remember the NPV is going to be calculated for us. The Excel will do discounting for us. We'll go to the cash flow that we had calculated over here. And what we are going to do is to take not the first year, which is in this case is minus 100, but we'll take the year after all the way through. And then we'll say okay. After that, again, you'll see the answer is obviously not 18.78. After that, we will go up where the formula is on the top. We'll plus, and I'm going to add this cell, and I'm going to hit enter. So now you can see NPV is there. So what did we do? We basically had Excel do the discounting for us and adding it up for us. Okay, and when we do that, remember you have to use the cash flow that is coming from your project, which I'll just color this in blue. This thing over here, that's what you want to do. Not the discounted, not this line over here, because this is Excel is discounting it for us and then adding it up for us. Okay, so we're going to use this thing and then add back this one. I'll do it one more time so you can see it. I'll do it over here right below. We need a formula. Go to the formula, go to the financials. We find the NPV. We can go in and tell them where the R is. That's all. We need the range. We just take these three over here. We hit enter. We go up with the formula is, we say plus sign. We add back this cell over here, which in this case is B4. Hit enter, and that's what you get. So now you can see, now we can do the same thing. I can go in and say, what if this is 0.12? Obviously, this one is being calculated based on us doing discounted cash flow, and this one over here, the yellow, us doing discounted cash flow, and adding it. This one, both of these things, because I did it twice for you, is using NPV formula. So if I make this a 0.18, boom, we get a number like that. So that's how you would do. So typically when you're doing it, that's how you would do it. Okay, but I wanted to show you what the discounted cash flow means, and then how discounted cash flow is used in NPV, but how Excel is doing both steps for us. It is doing the discounting cash flow and then adding it up. Okay. The last thing I'll talk about is the IRR. Again, IRR is R at which NP will be 0. So remember, we did this trial and error, and we said at 1.8, approximately at 1.812, NPV is close to 0, and hence IRR is close to 18.12. But instead of us doing trial and error, Excel has an embedded formula. So if I go do that, let's say we're going to calculate IRR. I come over here, formulas, again, financial formulas, find IRR. Okay. Again, I'll ask you to say, okay, what value are you looking for that you want this IRR for? I'm looking for this value. In this case, you're going to include the whole row. And you hit enter. This guessing over here, the reason it's asking for a guess is because, remember, it is an iterative process. Remember, I went through by changing the number till I got to 18.12. Excel is going to do it for us. If you don't put it in, it will assume we're going to start at 10%. It's going to keep doing it till it gets the right answer. If I hit OK, I get this number 18%. So let me just add some decimals. You'll see it is 18.12 something. 18.126. So slightly higher because remember we need a perfect 0. So IRR is this. I'll do it one more time. I need IRR. I go to the formulas, financial formulas now. Go to the IRR. It'll ask for the value. You take the whole range of cash flow. Now the discounted cash flow, the cash flow, I put it in. I hit enter, and boom, here it is. And if I want to see, how many decimals are in there, I can just go in and open up the decimals a little bit, and you can see right there. Okay, so that's how you do it. Hope this was helpful. I will post some basic cash flow numbers for you, and you can practice so this way you get comfortable with it. And if you have any learning gaps, please let me know.